Dad left us for his soul-saving affair partner, who then tried to trauma bond with my little sister. But just as my family's drama reached peak soap opera, the twist no one expected, Debbie's dark secrets weren't real, and my aunt's ice-cold clapback revealed it all. I remember it was lasagna, because the half-cooked noodles stayed in the pan for days after. Mackenzie, my little sister, 8F, was upstairs watching some kid YouTuber who makes slime or whatever. Then Dad came home early. Now, looking back, there were signs. The late nights at the office. The mysterious texts that made him smile in a way he hadn't smiled at home in years. The sudden interest in self-care that manifested as new clothes and a gym membership. But you know how it is. You don't see what you don't want to see. He asked Mom to sit down at the kitchen table. I was in the living room, pretending to be absorbed in derivatives while actually eavesdropping, a skill I've mastered over the years of family drama. He did that thing where he cleared his throat 3 times before speaking, a telltale dad sign that he's about to say something he thinks is very important. "Sarah," he said to Mom, using his I'm being extremely reasonable voice. "I need to tell you something. I'm not happy. I haven't been for a while." "What are you saying, John?" That's when we heard it. A car pulling up outside. Dad glanced at his phone. Then back at Mom. "I've met someone. Her name is Debbie. And she understands me in a way I haven't felt in years. I wish I could tell you." Mom threw his clothes out the window. Or that she screamed, cried, something. But she just sat there, gripping her coffee mug so tight her knuckles went white. And then, because this was apparently a choreographed performance, the doorbell rang. Debbie was at our door. Debbie was in our house. Debbie was helping my dad pack while my mom watched, and I tried to become one with the couch cushions. Debbie, you see, isn't just a homewrecker. She's a homewrecker with depression. Capital D. How do I know this? Because it's literally all she talks about. All the time. Debbie has turned her mental health struggles into an origin story. According to her, she was in the deepest, darkest pit of despair before she met my dad. She has the scars to prove it. And trust me, she makes sure everyone sees them. She'll roll up her sleeves in the middle of dinner, gesture with her arms so the light catches the silvery lines just right. The Debbie narrative goes like this. She was lost, broken, barely hanging on. Then she met my dad at work. He was the first person to truly see her. Their love wasn't just an affair. It was a healing journey. A beautiful story of 2 souls finding each other against all odds. Never mind that one of those souls was already married with 2 kids. Details, right? I tried to be understanding. Mental health is serious, and I get that depression can make you do things you wouldn't normally do. But there's a difference between depression made me stay in bed for 3 days, and depression made me actively pursue a married man, participate in his family's destruction, and then play victim about it for years. The worst part? The absolute worst part is how she treats my little sister, Mackenzie. Look, I can handle Debbie's constant attempts to trauma bond with me. I'm 17. I've seen enough teen dramas to recognize manipulation when I see it. But Mackenzie? She's 8. 8, she still believes in the tooth fairy, and thinks cats and dogs can't be friends because of cartoons. But Debbie has no problem telling Mackenzie all about her suicide attempts, her self-harm, how she wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Dad's love. A few months ago, Mackenzie came home from a weekend at Dad's asking Mom if she'd ever thought about doing sewer slide. Turns out Debbie had spent the afternoon telling my sister about the time she tried to unalive herself before Dad saved her. Mom went nuclear. I've never seen her so angry. She called Dad and told him Debbie wasn't allowed to be alone with Mackenzie anymore. Dad, predictably, defended his new wife. She's just being honest about mental health. We shouldn't stigmatize these discussions. Yeah, Dad, there's reducing stigma, and then there's traumatizing a 3rd grader. But I guess when you're wearing affair goggles, everything looks rosy. Fast forward to last weekend. It's my grandpa's birthday, and the whole family is there, including Debbie. Now, I have this aunt. Let's call her Aunt Maria. Aunt Maria actually does suffer from severe depression and schizophrenia. She's been hospitalized multiple times. But unlike some people, she doesn't use it as her entire personality. At one point, only Dad, Aunt Maria, Debbie, my other Aunt Carmen, and I were in the living room. Somehow, Debbie started talking about her depression again. She was going on and on about how she could only overcome her depression when she met my dad. How he saved her. How their love healed her broken soul. I was sitting there trying not to roll my eyes into another dimension when Aunt Maria suddenly spoke up. Now, this is significant because Aunt Maria is usually pretty quiet, lost in her own world. But apparently, she'd had enough of Debbie's performance. I tried to save myself by going to a psychologist. Aunt Maria said, calm as anything. Not by jumping on the stick of a married man. The room went so quiet. Then Aunt Maria added, depression made me want to jump off a bridge, not ruin a family. And I laughed. I couldn't help it. Maybe it was the shock, or the tension, or just the absolute perfection of Aunt Maria choosing that moment to have a crystal clear observation. But I laughed. Debbie immediately started crying. Dad shot me this look of pure disappointment and anger. On the drive home, he lectured me about how no one knows everything Debbie has suffered. Except we do know. It's literally all she talks about. It's her origin story, her justification, her get-out-of-jail-free card for any criticism. Depressed people do lots of things. They oversleep. They don't shower. They struggle to work. Somehow, I've never heard of depression making someone deliberately pursue a married man, help him pack while his wife watches, and then play victim about it for years. I didn't apologize. Dad's still mad at me. Debbie's still crying. But Aunt Maria is my new hero. Since the incident, the whole family has basically imploded. Dad's not speaking to Aunt Maria. Grandpa is mad at Dad for being mad at Aunt Maria. Grandma is trying to play peacekeeper but keeps accidentally leaving Debbie off the family dinner invites. My other aunts and uncles are taking sides. And me? I'm somehow the bad guy for laughing. But you know what? I'm tired of walking on eggshells. I'm tired of watching Debbie use her mental health as a weapon. I'm tired of seeing my mom try to hold it together while Debbie plays the victim. I'm tired of worrying about what new trauma my sister's going to come home with after every visit to Dad's. Some context that I think matters. 1. During the affair, Debbie used to send Dad pictures of her self-harm wounds to guilt him into leaving family events to be with her. He missed my piano recital because she was in crisis. Found out later they were at a hotel. Apparently, that's what mental health support looks like when you're having an affair. 2. Debbie used to see a therapist, but she stopped going because, and I quote, "Your father heals me more than any therapist could." Excuse me while I go throw up in my mouth a little. 3. She's been trying to parent my sister and me since day one. She's always talking about how we're her girls now and how she wants us to be a real family. She tells everyone who'll listen that she's taking on the role of stepmom with so much love and how challenging but rewarding it is. Meanwhile, my actual mom is barely keeping it together, working 2 jobs, because Dad's child support barely covers anything. 4. Last Christmas, Debbie gave everyone in the family, including my mom, a copy of her journal from the time she met Dad. It was full of entries about their forbidden love and how she knew it was wrong but couldn't help falling for him. She said it was part of her healing journey to share it. Aunt Carmen used hers as kindling for the fireplace. The financial stuff is hitting hard too. Mom had to downsize our house because she can't afford the mortgage on her own. Meanwhile, Dad and Debbie just got back from a healing retreat in Bali. But whenever Mom brings up increasing child support, Dad talks about how Debbie's medical bills from her dark time are still affecting their finances. So my mom works extra shifts, while Debbie posts Instagram stories about her self-care Sundays, and how retail therapy is sometimes necessary for mental health. I know this is getting long, but it feels good to finally talk about it. My friends try to understand, but unless you've lived through something like this, it's hard to get how much it messes with your head. How do you process your dad choosing someone who deliberately tried to hurt your family? How do you look at wedding photos of them smiling like it's the happiest day of their lives when you know the real story started with tears and betrayal? So, Reddit, was I wrong to laugh? Should I have been more sympathetic? I know mental health is serious, but at what point does it stop being an excuse for hurting other people? Too long. Didn't read. My dad's affair partner new wife constantly uses her depression as an excuse for breaking up my family. When my aunt, who has actual severe mental health issues, called her out on it, I laughed. Now everyone's mad at me, but I don't think I was wrong. Edit. Thank you for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions, 1. Yes, we're in family therapy. Minus Debbie, thank God. 2. No, my dad hasn't apologized for any of this. 3. Yes, my mom is talking to lawyers about full custody. 4. For those asking about Aunt Maria, she's okay. She has her struggles, but she's got actual professional help and a support system that doesn't involve destroying families. Also, for the people saying I'm heartless about mental health, I get that depression is serious. I've dealt with anxiety myself since all this happened. But mental illness explains behavior. It doesn't excuse it. Debbie made choices. Lots of them. Every day for months, she chose to continue an affair with a married man. Depression didn't make those choices for her. Final update before I go to bed. Mom just showed me texts from Debbie saying she's worried about my mental health after the party and thinks I need to see a therapist to deal with my obvious anger issues. The irony is killing me. Guess I'll add that to my therapy list. right under trust issues and fear of accounting departments. Update 1. My depressed stepmom, Dad's affair partner, is now sending me manipulative texts. Dad's finally seeing her true colors, and my family is in chaos. It honestly helped to know I'm not crazy for feeling this way. A lot has happened in the last few days. And surprise, surprise, it's all about Debbie's mental health. Again, my mom banned Debbie from being around my sister and me. Yeah, Debbie's taking that about as well as you'd expect. Which is to say, she's having a full-on meltdown. And somehow making it everyone else's problem. It started with texts. So many texts. At first, they were the usual Debbie style reaching out with love. I know things are difficult right now, but I miss my girls. Your father is so sad without you home. We need to heal as a family. When I didn't respond, things escalated. She started sending paragraph-long messages about how my mother is manipulating us. And how someday you'll understand that true love requires sacrifice. Pretty sure those sacrifices aren't supposed to include your wife and kids. But what do I know? I'm just a teenager who still believes in crazy things, like don't cheat and don't traumatize third graders. The best, worst, one was this gem. I know you're young and can't see it now. But your mother is using her pain to keep us apart. I've been in therapy and learned that sometimes people who are hurting try to hurt others. I'm strong enough to forgive her. And I hope someday you'll be strong enough to see the truth. I showed the texts to my mom, who went from zero to lawyer so fast I think she broke the sound barrier. Turns out we have this thing called a custody agreement that Debbie is basically tap dancing all over. Mom called Dad and apparently they had a talk. Dad had no idea about the texts. According to my cousin, when Mom showed him the messages, he actually got mad at Debbie. Like, legitimately upset. He's been staying at my grandparents' house for the past couple of nights because he needs space to think. 2 nights ago, around 11 p.m., guess who showed up at my grandparents' house? If you guessed Debbie, congratulations. She was crying and demanding to see Dad. She started yelling about how he couldn't leave her like this. And how she needed him. My grandfather, who's usually the super calm, quiet guy, actually had to threaten to call the police to get her to leave. My aunt, the non-schizophrenic one, told me that Dad finally confided in her about some stuff. This isn't the first time Debbie's pulled this kind of stunt. She's been sending him messages saying things like, if you leave me, I'll wanna live myself. And you're the only thing keeping me alive. Dad admitted he's afraid to leave her because of what she might do. Let that sink in. My father, who left his entire family because this woman manipulated him with her mental health, is now trapped by the same manipulation. If this wasn't my actual life, I'd think it was a badly written soap opera. Yesterday, Dad had to leave work in the middle of the day because Debbie sent him goodbye messages. Don't worry, she's fine. She just did her usual attention cut. Dad's company isn't too happy about him constantly running out for these emergencies. Some more fun facts that have come out since everything exploded. 1. Remember how I said Debbie would contact Dad during their affair whenever she was in crisis? Turns out, she had a whole system. If he didn't respond to her texts within 30 minutes, she'd send a picture of a new cut. If he still didn't respond, she'd up the ante. My aunt said Dad showed her some of the old messages. And they're basically a master class in manipulation. 2. Debbie's ex-best friend reached out to my mom. Apparently, Debbie's pulled this exact same stunt before, with her previous boss. She didn't succeed in breaking up his marriage, but not for lack of trying. The depression narrative, the self-harm as manipulation, it's her signature move. 3. Debbie's been telling her family a completely different version of events. In her story, she's the hero who saved my dad from a loveless marriage, and my mom is the bitter ex-wife, keeping him from his new family. She's even been saying that my sister and I were neglected before she came into our lives. Yeah, because nothing says neglect like home-cooked meals, help with homework, and not talking to your kids about suicide. The worst part of all this? My little sister. She's so confused and scared. She doesn't understand why she can't see Dad, why everyone's fighting, why her new bonus mom suddenly isn't allowed near her. She asked me yesterday if this was her fault, if she did something wrong to make everyone sad. I tried to explain it in kids' terms, but how do you tell an 8-year-old that her father's new wife is an emotionally manipulative person who uses mental health as a weapon? Mom's lawyer is now talking about getting a restraining order. Debbie's behavior qualifies as harassment, especially since she's been told to stop contacting us. They're also looking into having Dad's custody revised. Mom doesn't want to keep us from Dad, but she needs to know we're safe when we're with him, and right now, with Debbie's instability, we're not. My mom is also talking about having our last names changed. In our country, you can go to court and have your father's surname removed, which also takes away his parental rights. It's a big step, and Mom says she wouldn't even consider it if Debbie wasn't in the picture, but she needs to protect us. I'm old enough to decide for myself, but she's really worried about Mackenzie. Aunt Maria visited yesterday. She brought ice cream and let me rant. When I finished, she just said, "Honey, normal people don't break up families and call it healing. That's not depression. That's just being an asshole." Have I mentioned how much I love Aunt Maria? If there is any silver lining in this, it must be I'm getting good material for my college application essays, right? Describe a challenge you've overcome. Well, let me tell you about the time my stepmom tried to trauma bond with me over destroying my family. Update 2. This update is insane. First, thanks for all the support. Special shout out to the person who said Debbie sounds like she has a PhD in manipulation with a minor in victim complex. I'm stealing that. So, where do I even start? I guess with the bomb that blew everything up. Debbie has been lying. About everything. And I mean everything. Those self-harm scars that she loves showing off. The suicide attempts she can't stop talking about. Her dark past that only my dad could save her from. All of it, every single bit, was a lie. Here's how it all came out. Debbie's ex-best friend who contacted my mom again. She didn't just reach out to spill tea. She came with receipts. She'd been feeling guilty for years about helping Debbie maintain her lies. And my last post, which someone had shared on Facebook, was the last straw. She gave my mom a USB drive full of evidence. Photos, videos, text messages, everything. Mom waited until she had a lawyer present to look at it. Debbie has never been diagnosed with depression. She saw a therapist twice in college for exam anxiety. And that's it. All those stories about hospitalizations and suicide attempts? Complete fiction. Those scars she's always showing off? They're makeup. Really good makeup, but makeup nonetheless. The ex-best friend sent videos of Debbie literally applying fake scars using some kind of special effects makeup. Debbie had been planning to seduce my dad for months. No savior, no sleeping beauty here. The USB had screenshots of text conversations between Debbie and her friends where she literally outlined her strategy to land a rich husband. She chose my dad because he was successful, but, in her words, clearly bored and desperate for excitement. She even practiced her vulnerable damsel in distress act. All those dramatic crisis moments during their affair? Totally scheduled and staged. She'd wait until she knew my dad had family obligations, then create an emergency. The ex-best friend was often there, helping her stage the scenes. She said watching Debbie apply fake blood and practice her desperate voice before calling my dad made her feel sick. Debbie isn't even her real name. Her real name is Angela, and she's been pulling the same scam for years in different cities. She's been married twice before, and both marriages ended when her husbands discovered her lies. She changes her name slightly each time and moves to a new city to start fresh. Mom and the lawyer took all of this to my dad last weekend. I wasn't there, but according to my grandfather, Dad went through all 5 stages of grief in about 20 minutes. He started by denying it could be true, then got angry, tried to bargain, sank into a deep depression right there on the couch, and finally accepted that he'd been played like a discount fiddle. Dad, finally out of the affair fog and probably realizing just how spectacularly he'd messed up, decided to come clean about everything. I mean everything. He talked for hours. Some highlights. Debbie had been signing Dad up for credit cards in his name and maxing them out. All those medical bills from her dark time that were affecting their finances. Shopping sprees. She has closets full of designer clothes with the tags still on. She'd been slowly isolating Dad from his friends. She'd delete messages from his phone. Tell him people had said things they hadn't. Even created fake evidence of his friends betraying him. Classic abuser moves. When Dad first started having doubts about their relationship, Debbie convinced him she was pregnant. She even faked a miscarriage when he suggested couples counseling. Who does that? She'd been recording all their conversations and screenshotting all their texts, supposedly to remember their love story, but really to have ammunition if he ever tried to leave. The woman was playing 4D chess while the rest of us were playing checkers. Now, you're probably wondering what happened when Dad confronted Debbie. Don't worry, it's just as dramatic as you'd expect. Dad went home that night and did what any sensible person would do. He pretended everything was normal while secretly gathering evidence and consulting with Mom's lawyer. He played along for 3 days, quietly documenting everything and moving important documents to a safe place. Then, last Wednesday, while Debbie was at her weekly yoga class, Dad changed the locks, packed her things, and had them delivered to her workplace by a courier. He left a letter from his lawyer explaining that he knew everything, and any attempts to contact him or his family would result in legal action. Debbie's reaction was nuclear. She showed up at the house, still in her yoga pants, screaming about true love and forgiveness. When Dad wouldn't let her in, she sat on the front lawn crying and threatening to hurt herself. Dad, finally showing the spine we've all been waiting for, called the police. They took her away, and as she was being led to the car, she was still yelling about how she'd saved him. One of our neighbors recorded the whole thing. It's already made the rounds in our community Facebook group, and let me tell you, watching Debbie try to explain to the police that she's just a broken soul who loves too deeply while still in her Lululemon leggings is chef's kiss. As for the aftermath, Dad's staying with my grandparents while he sorts everything out. He's filed for annulment, and is working with a forensic accountant to untangle all the financial mess Debbie created. Mom's lawyers are having a field day. Turns out, all of Debbie's lies and manipulations actually work in our favor legally. Dad's going to have to pay a lot in restitution and increased child support, but he seems genuinely relieved to be doing something right for once. My sister is confused, but mostly okay. We told her a kid-friendly version of events. Basically that Debbie lied about being sick, and that's not okay. She asked if this means she doesn't have to pretend to like Debbie's quinoa salads anymore, so I think she'll be fine. The extended family is processing. Aunt Maria just laughed for like 5 straight minutes when she heard, then said, "I told you normal people don't break up families and call it healing." Aunt Maria remains undefeated. Debbie's been trying to control the narrative on social media, posting about being betrayed by her soulmate, and how some people will never understand the depths of true love and suffering. But it's kind of hard to play the victim when there are literal videos of you applying fake scars while practicing your vulnerable voice. Dad's been trying to apologize. He sent me a long email explaining everything from his perspective. How he got sucked in, how Debbie made him feel needed and heroic, how the lie snowballed until he couldn't see the truth anymore. He ended it by saying he knows he doesn't deserve forgiveness, but he hopes someday I'll let him try to earn it. Mom says she's past anger and is just sad. Sad that Dad was so easily fooled. Sad that our family was blown up for a lie. Sad that she spent 2 years blaming herself for not being enough when really she was up against a professional con artist. So that's where we are now. Dad's single and in therapy. Mom's thinking about dating again. Her lawyer is kind of cute, just saying. Mackenzie's happy she never has to eat quinoa again. The extended family is alternating between fury at Debbie and relief that it's over. Oh, and remember how I said this would make a good college essay? My English teacher agrees. She says colleges love stories about overcoming adversity and learning life lessons. I'm thinking of calling it How My Evil Stepmother Taught Me About Fact-Checking and the Importance of Quality Makeup Remover. Too long. Didn't read. Stepmom turned out to be a con artist who faked mental illness to seduce my dad. Everything was a lie. Dad finally grew a spine, kicked her out, and is trying to make amends. Family is healing. Evil stepmother is now someone else's problem. And I learned that if someone's life story sounds like a Lifetime movie, maybe get a background check. Edit. Thanks for all the awards. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, we're pressing charges. The financial fraud alone is enough for some serious legal consequences. 2. Yes, I'm still in therapy. Now with bonus trauma. 3. No, we haven't heard from Debbie Angela since the lawn incident. Her social media has gone suspiciously quiet. 4. For those asking, yes, we have warned her workplace. They're doing their own investigation now. Final thought. Someone commented that this would make a great movie. Well, if Netflix is reading this, call me. But only if you cast someone really ridiculous to play Debbie. I'm thinking Kristen Wiig in full dramatic actress trying to win an Oscar mode.